Greetings. I hope everyone is doing well. And I'm here to talk about copywriting psychology. I will be teaching based off of some of the institutional education I had from my higher education in communications, along with some classical ever working ideals in copywriting, which is all really just a fancy way of saying I went to college for this. My name is Zinzo, and welcome to my channel. I'm here to talk about why most copy sounds clever but never sells today. And this is what you would call the high cost of being witty or being very clever with your words. So, in the contemporary landscape of digital marketing and professional sales, there is a seductive trap that consumes marketing budgets and kills conversion rates. The cleverness trap, as it is called. It is the tendency to prioritize puns, metaphors, and sophisticated wordplay over the fundamental task of the copy, which is to make a human being, which is to move a human being to take a specific action. This is very true. I mean, how often have you guys come across certain ads that are just far too intellectually based? I don't know if wherever you're watching this from, if you guys have a Nando's, it's basically a franchise that sells fried chicken. A lot of these jokes will make sense to me now, but as I was younger, I used to always try to configure what did they really mean. And I feel like if you can't figure it out as a 15-year-old what the ad is trying to say, then I feel like it's a bit too complex and it's missing the point. It's going over the heads of people, and people cannot find grounding with it enough to say, oh, I'm actually interested in that. And you get caught up in the cleverness of the words and the prestigiousness of the words and how complex it is that you miss the point altogether of what it is you're trying to achieve, which is to just make a sale. I mean, all they do is sell chicken. It did not need to be that complex. Most copy today sounds clever, but it fails to sell because it forgets that the customer's primary goal is not to be entertained by a brand's wit. It is to find a reliable solution to a pressing problem. When copy attempts to be too smart, it creates a psychological barrier between the product and the prospect. This comprehensive report examines the structural failures of clever copy, the neurobiology of why it fails to convert, and the professional standards required to pivot back to copy that drives sustainable revenue. All right. So, how do we distinguish between admiration and action? The core problem with clever copy is a fundamental misalignment of intent. When a reader encounters a brilliant pun or an intricate metaphor, their cognitive process shifts. They stop admiring the writer's wit. They might think, that's a smart line, or what a creative ad. They stop to admire the writer's wit, sorry. However, the moment a prospect admires the writing, they have stopped thinking about the product completely. In professional copywriting, success is inevitable. The best copy doesn't make the reader think. The writer is smart. It makes the reader think to purchase. It makes the reader think the purchase is smart. If the audience is focused on the elegance of your prose, they are not focused on their own pain points or the benefit of the solution. Professional copy should be a clear window through which the prospect views the offer. If the window is covered in clever stained glass, it may look beautiful, but the prospect can no longer see what they are buying. So a lot of companies do this. A lot of companies miss the basic point. One company that has done this excellently is Naked, because it's a very minimalistic joke. But I believe the first time a person might have seen it and not recognized that Naked is the name of a company, it goes over their head, and it's always in a catchy pun, or naked people don't do this, naked people don't do that. This is Naked, the insurance company. I'm not sure, but I'm based in South Africa, but that's where I've seen it from. I'm not sure if it's global yet. But there's a company called Naked, and it always says naked people don't do such and such. Naked people are, and it refers to people that are in participants with uh, Naked, the company, as their insurer, not physically naked people. So when you begin to always be interested in what Naked will say, you miss the point about insurance, about how you need to be insured. What Naked has been able to do, though, is pivot and make light of a serious situation which works for them. But it doesn't always work out successfully. Admiration is a passive state. It is a top of funnel metric that feels good but doesn't pay the bills. Action, on the other hand, requires the prospect to feel a sense of urgency and clarity. If the copy is busy being witty, it often misses the chance to be urgent. The ego gap. Writing for peers versus writing for customers. Much of the clever copy we see in the market is a byproduct of ego writing. This occurs when copywriters, business owners, or marketing agencies write to impress their peers, their competitors, or their creative directors rather than their actual customers. Now it's no longer about what am I bringing to the customer, what exchange is being given, as in what value does the customer receive through me writing this copy, and what product will they purchase from me should they see this copy. It's more about, oh, my boss said, oh, my friends think, or my peers who are often competitors in the same league think about my copy. Peer focused writing uses industry standard puns and edgy tones to look sophisticated in the eyes of other marketers. It seeks to win awards, get featured in design galleries, or earn likes on professional networking sites. While this builds the writer's ego, it rarely builds the client's bank account. This is very true. So when you're writing, please do not make the mistake of making it about you and you possibly attaining more than somebody else. Please make it be about the client, about making sure that whatever is written and whoever it is written for will bring about means of exchange of a product and value for them and remuneration for you. Customer focused writing, conversely, uses the specific, often simple language the customer uses to describe their own problem. It is unglamorous, it is direct, it is empathetic. Customers do not care about your brand's personality until they know your brand can help them. When a company is too clever, it signals that the brand is more interested in its own image than in the customer's success. Direct, plain spoken copy signals that you understand the customer's world well enough that you don't need to dress it up in metaphors. Now let's get to the neurobiology of the scale, cognitive load, and friction. As mentioned before, to understand why cleverness fails, we must look at the way the human brain processes information. The brain is an energy conserving organ. I've said this before. It is constantly trying to minimize caloric expenditure. This is why habits exist, to automate tasks and save energy. When a reader encounters a clever headline, for example, a pun that requires a moment of reflection to get, the brain must enter a state of active processing. It has to decode the double meaning. This creates cognitive load. In a sales environment, cognitive load is a form of friction because now it's messing with their daily habit. It isn't something that they saw that they can inhibit into their daily lives and think later to purchase. Now it's something that is hindering them from going on about their day. They have to take a moment to first understand it, first get to whether they agree with it or not, and it hasn't even resolved their pain points. It's too glamorous, it gets people flustered, and oftentimes this is exactly what drives people away from copy as opposed to towards it. The double take is the death of a sale. If A reader has to pause for even a millisecond to understand the metaphor in a headline. Oh, I said the neurobiology of the scale. Sorry, neurobiology of the sale. That was my mistake. In the digital age, attention is the most fragile currency. We have been trained by social media to scroll past anything that isn't immediately relevant. If your headline requires a moment of reflection, most readers will have already scrolled past it before their brain finishes the calculation. The penalty for being clever is high. You lose the prospect before you've even made your case. Enough said, I think. Enough said. Now we're going to be going over these three specific concepts: the specificity rule, the caveman headline, the transformation focus. To move from clever copy to selling copy, a professional must embrace a clarity first framework. This means prioritizing specific elements over any creative impulse. Specificity, simplicity, and transformation. The specificity rule. Clever copy tends to be vague because it is trying to be evocative. An example would be a headline like "A New Dawn for Your Productivity." This sounds nice, but it tells the prospect nothing. Selling copy is specific, such as the only project manager tool that cuts your meetings times by 30%. Specificity creates a mental image of the result. Cleverness creates a vague vibe. When a prospect sees a specific number or a specific result, they can begin to calculate the ROI of the product. Vague metaphors allow for no such calculation. And what you want to do is to get whoever it is that is interested in your product thinking about the product. That is what you're essentially interested in. The more they think about the product, the more they are likely to purchase the product. And the more likely they are able to reflect within themselves, do I actually need this product? Can I purchase this product? And then affordability goes out the window because then you would have sold your product. And that's the whole basic premise of copy. The caveman headline. If you stripped away all the adjectives and metaphors, could a person with no context understand what you are offering? A clever headline might say, "Sip on the nectar of the gods and transcend your morning routine." A selling headline says, "Organic coffee that helps you stay focused without the jitters." The latter is less impressive, but it tells the customer exactly why they should reach for their wallet. It speaks to the lizard brain, the part of the brain responsible for survival and basic needs. And all you're there to do, and again ethically, is to find out the fears of people. Because remember, our tools are fears and desires. Fear from the worst happening, fear from pain, and desire towards uh, relief, joy, and happiness. The transformation focus. Copy that sells is obsessed with transformation from the before, the pain, to the after, the solution. Clever copy often gets lost in the mechanism, the unique way the product works, because the mechanism is where writers get to be creative. Selling copy stays focused on the outcome. The prospect doesn't care about the revolutionary technology behind your mattress. They care that they will wake up without back pain for the first time in 5 years. I think that's self explanatory as well. Now, the fallacy of the sophisticated audience. A common defense of clever copy is that the target audience is sophisticated or high level, and therefore should be bored by plain language. This is a significant misunderstanding of how high level decision makers operate. CEOs, surgeons, engineers, and high net worth individuals are usually the people with the least amount of time. They are constantly filtering out noise to find the signal. They don't want to be entertained by a business to business software company. They want to know if the software will integrate with the existing tech stack and save them money. Just think about it for a second. I'm assuming that some of my viewers are very, very busy, but let's just assume that you're not. Uh, if you were busy, what time would you have in a day and you have so many tasks to do? Would you have to read something very complex, first decode it, and then like it, and then contemplate the idea if maybe it suits your fancy or not, and then eventually come to a decision about making a purchase or not of that um, overly grandiose language that has been dramatized and doesn't really plainly tell you what exactly it is that you're purchasing? Would you even make that purchase, being that extremely busy? I don't think anyone really would have the time. Too many tasks at hand and too many crucial decisions to make with other people's lives weighing in tow. I don't think that's feasible for anyone. So, looking at it from that perspective, that is how high net worth individuals operate. The more sophisticated the buyer, the more they appreciate the respect you show of their time by being direct. Directness is not the same as being dumbed down. Directness is the process of removing unnecessary words to the core value proposition so the core value proposition can stand on its own. It is the highest form of professional communication, without a doubt. So, psychological in-group error. Clever copy often relies on cultural references, inside jokes, or industry specific puns. While this can occasionally create a sense of in group belonging for those who get it, it simultaneously alienates anyone who doesn't. And I know that for everything that somebody loves, somebody hates on the very same thing. You could find a movie, a phenomenal movie, greatest of its time, it still has people that hate it. And what you're basically doing is you are cutting your demographic in half or by whatever amount, but you are cutting a decent size of your demographic, leaving them out in the cold because you've chosen a specific uh, quote or specific meaning from a certain movie or whatever cultural reference that you'd be making, and you leave them out into the cold. And that decreases your sales. And the aim of copy is to make the sale. If a prospect reads your copy and doesn't immediately understand the joke or the reference, they feel a subtle sting of exclusion. They feel as though they aren't part of the cool club your brand is building. Psychologically, this triggers a defense response. Instead of wanting to buy, the prospect wants to leave. Clarity, on the other hand, is inclusive. Everyone understands a clear benefit. By choosing clarity, you widen your net and ensure that no potential customer is left behind due to a misunderstood metaphor. You don't want to leave those people out in the dark because you may have a targeted audience and you might find that you do get from your targeted demographic, but there are obviously outliers in other demographics that are likely to fall into yours, and that makes your sample space of your pie much bigger. So when you do that, while you do build strong loyalty within the cultural references with the people that were already for your brand, you lock a lot of people out. And when it comes to sales, people can only make the sale once, depending on whatever it is that you sell. But even in services, they can only make the sale once. They have what they need, and that's the end of it. You still need to make and cover more sales. The role of proof versus the role of prose. Clever copy relies on the strength of the prose to carry the sale. Selling copy relies on the strength of the proof. When a writer is being clever, they are often trying to compensate for a lack of hard data, testimonials, or a unique selling proposition. They hope that a witty enough turn of phrase will distract the reader from the fact that the product hasn't been proven to work. Professional selling copy leads with proof. It uses case studies, statistics, and social proof as the primary engine of persuasion. It uses language simply to connect these points of proof. If you have a product that genuinely helps people, you do not need to be clever. You just need to be honest. The facts will do the selling for you. I think that's very self explanatory, especially with the USP. When you have your own unique selling point, I mean, you do not need the most intellectual debacle of a conversation with a person that sells cars. They will tell you this McLaren goes from 0 to 100 at this speed. It looks like this. Its color is that. And this is the car. And without a doubt, anyone that is in the right tax bracket will say, oh no, I'm interested. Give me one of those. There's no need for a car of elegance and superiority that outstands the too grandiose. It's just too grandiose. How to audit your copy for cleverness load. To ensure your copy is working for your bottom line rather than your ego, you must implement a rigorous auditing process. Apply these filters to every headline, subject line, and call to action. The CTA, the so what filter. Read every sentence of your copy out loud. After each one, imagine a cynical prospect asking, so what? If the sentence doesn't provide a direct answer in the form of a benefit, it is likely the cleverness low. It is worthy of note that this method really works. The literal replacement test. Take your clever headline and replace it with a boring, literal description of what you're offering. For example, change ignite your inner potential to we provide career coaching for mid level managers. If the literal version feels more informative and trustworthy, your original headline was too clever. And then the jargon and metaphor purge. Search your copy for industry buzzwords and abstract metaphors. Replace leveraging with use, replace holistic with complete, replace synergy with working together. People do not buy from brands that speak in abstractions. They buy from brands that speak like human beings. And that is also why AI can never take over copywriting because there is a certain emotionally intelligible language that one human can only communicate to another human. And for copywriting couldn't possibly be replaced by AI because each uh, copy, in and of itself, written by a person, is different from when it is written by AI. It is to the equivalent, I heard someone say, it is to the equivalent of calculators replacing mathematicians. Still need the mathematicians, but the calculators do help. The calculators do help. It's just less work. The relationship between length and clarity. There is a common myth that clear copy must be short copy. That is not true. Some of the most successful sales letters in history are 10 pages long. However, they are 10 pages of clear information, not 10 pages of clever fluff. Long copy sells when it provides the prospect with all the information they need to make an informed decision. It answers objections, provides evidence, and explains the process in detail. Cleverness, however, is difficult to sustain over long distances. If you try to be witty for 10 pages, you will eventually exhaust the reader. If you try to be clear for 10 pages, you will eventually convince the reader. That is the difference between the two. The professionalism of directness. Ultimately, the shift from cleverness to clarity is a shift towards a more professional standard of sales. Being clever is the mark of an amateur who wants to be noticed. Being clear is the mark of a professional who wants to be useful. When you write clear copy, You are making a promise to your customer. You are stating exactly what you will do and exactly how it will help them. You are standing between your product without the crutch of creative ambiguity. This level of transparency builds long-term brand equity that witty slogan can never achieve. All right. So as we draw closer to the conclusion, practical implementation, the sale call rule. If you want to know if your copy is too clever, imagine saying it out loud to a prospect during a high stakes sales call. If you were sitting across a potential client who was about to write a check for $50,000, would you look them in the eye and say, "We're going to help you experience a symphony of seamless integration"? Of course not. You would feel ridiculous. You would say, "Our software will connect your three main databases so your team doesn't to enter say have to enter the same data three times." It is too embarrassing to say if it is too embarrassing to say in person, it's too clever to put into your copy. The written word should follow the same rules as the spoken word in a professional settings. Be direct, be honest, and be clear. In conclusion, the courage to be simple. It takes a surprising amount of courage to write simple copy. Simple copy feels naked to the writer. It feels like you aren't adding value through your creative genius. However, the value you add is not in the prose, it is in the clarity you provide to the buyer. The most successful brands in the world understand this. Apple doesn't use puns to sell their iPhone. They show you what the camera can do. Amazon doesn't use metaphors to sell Prime. They tell you your package will arrive tomorrow. Stop trying to be the smartest person in the room. Start being the most helpful person in the room. When you trade your cleverness for clarity, you aren't improving your writing, you are improving your business. You are moving from word of creative expression into the world of economic results. In the final analysis, that is the only metric that matters. All right, now take note. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please take note, as I just said, my Instagram is on the screen at Zinzo International. That's my Instagram. Send me a DM to work with me. I specialize in email and YouTube copy. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll be sure to definitely see you in the next one.